I prepared something for today. So I wanted to talk about inlays. So just before we get going, so the idea of doing an inlay is when you take two pieces of material and say cut point. So then you can like cut a piece inside this one and then cut a similar piece that kind of goes inside of that one. So when I put this one in, the idea is that I want that to have a really nice fit. And so this one I have as an example, you know, the first example doesn't necessarily have a super nice fit, but we'll get to it. So this is what we're going to be covering in this live stream. Hopefully I can get pretty far with this one. Okay, so we got 7 people watching. Cool. So yeah, the idea with the inlays is that it's kind of like a cool decorative technique, and you get to use 2 different materials. In this case, I'm using this cherry plywood. It's like a 1/8 cherry. And then this one is maple. And so then you can play with like contrasting, you know, doing a nice contrast between the two. In this case, I'm using this like moon phase component. So I'll cover how to use that. And then you get to make these really nice designs. And like, you know, some of these designs will be, will work from the back and from the front. So this one still has the masking tape, but. So that's the idea. So I'm going to walk through all the steps to get these to be a really nice fit, and how to create a, you know, template. Yeah, it could be a template, but like how to use Cuddle to facilitate the process of creating the inlays. So let's get started. I'm going to switch over here to my Cuddle project. So I have a blank project. I'm going to get started here. I'm going to call it the moon inlay. And so I'm going to just sketch out first what I kind of want to happen at the end. So I think the idea is to grab a circle. I want that circle to be a little bit bigger, so I'm going to change the scale. So 1.5 inches. And so this is just my sketch, so I'm just going to give it some color. So I'm like, change the fill, so I can just sort of see what I'm doing. I'm going to like orange, cherry, towards the red, I guess, something like that. So I want this kind of base material, and then I want the sort of moon cut out of it. And so Forrest created this really cool component called the moon phase. So I search moon up here on the search box, moon, and then there's this basic shape called moon phase, and I'm going to drag it and put it in the middle. And I want it to be a bit bigger, you know, like 1 inch, say 1.2 inches. And so I want that moon to be cut out of that. And let's just give it a fill so we can kind of recognize what's happening. Kind of like a yellow to have a contrast. So this is my goal. This is going to be cherry. This is going to be maple. So the idea is, so yeah, this is the idea. And so I'm going to get started by creating a new component. And that's going to be, again, my moon phase, because that's what's shared between the two things, the inside. So let me see, to explain it better. I'm going to have this section be an inside cut, this one, and then this is going to be an outside cut. And then when I'm done, I'm going to put this one inside of that one. So what is shared here is that these and these are kind of connected shapes. One fun thing I'm going to mention right now is that with this moon phase, you can actually change the face of the moon. We'll play with that later, but let's get going with the inlays first. So because this is the kind of shared shape with these two, I'm gonna start by, using the moon shape as my base. So the moon phase is here. The size I chose was 1.2. Yeah, Let's make it like that. So that's one of my components. I'm going to call it the moon. And then the other component, it's going to be the outside circle. So I'm just going to make it into a separate component on its own. And we made it 1.5 inches. And so because this is going to be an outside cut, I'm going to be organized and make it into a red outline. And so my idea is that I'm going to drag this moon cut and I'm going to place it here. But before I do that, or actually let's do it. So I have the moon shape. I'm going to place it here as the inside cut. And then I'm just going to create another component called my cut. So when I'm ready to cut, I can simply export things. So I will be cutting this one, which is the circle. I will be cutting this one, and I will be cutting these ones separately. And once again, to keep things organized, I'm going to make this an outside cut by making it red. And then this one is an inside cut. Let me just make it black. There we go. So this is going to be my first cut, just to test these things out. So I'm going to cut this one out of cherry and cut this one out of maple. So that is the first example I'm going to show you. I had to prepare the cuts ahead of time, so I could do this in half an hour. So I cut this one just like that. Like the thing I just did was like I cut this one out of cherry and this one out of maple without any additional treatments. So we'll see what happens if I put this one inside. It fits in, but there is a little bit of wiggle. And so what I want to do is deal with that wiggle. And it's kind of funny that there is some wiggle because, you know, the two shapes are identical. The outside cut and the inside cut are identical as the way I send them to the laser cutter, and yet we have this behavior. And so there's an explanation for that. So I'm going to kind of quickly run you through why this happens and how we solve it. So the reason this happens is, I got a little demo here. So when you cut this shape, this is the shape I'm sending to the laser cutter. What happens is that the laser cutter has a beam of light that is cutting the thing, and that beam of light is roughly round. And so to simulate that beam of light, I have this like circle that's going around the shape. So as you can see, the center of the circle follows the line. And so as that circle cuts that shape, the resultant shape is not necessarily the one I kind of sent to the cutter with this, which is the black line I have right here. It's actually the shape that is left by the cut. So something like these. So the pink shape is what I end up with, but the black line is what I sent to the cutter. And that is just due to the size of the hole or the size of the stuff that the laser burns. And so if the laser is very small, like something like this, I'm gonna simulate changing the size of the laser. You'll see that the resulting shape can be a little bit bigger, but in general is gonna be always is gonna be smaller than what you sent. I don't wanna I'm gonna use that word that some people hate, and so which is the kerf. That's what happens when the laser cuts things away. So the more that the laser burns, the smaller the resulting shape gets. So this is like a total exaggeration here. Like a laser is not going to be that big with a shape this size. The rough size of the laser is about 0.07 inches. Actually, oh yeah, we can still see it. If I zoom in, we can still see that kind of happening. So the difference is tiny. And so it's most of the time it's not visible, but you can actually feel it. So anyway, the idea here is that like if we want a certain shape to be a certain size, let's say let's say I have this desired shape. Let me get. If the shape I actually want is this blue one, the blue line, then what I can do is sort of take that shape and expand it a little bit until the laser kind of matches, the cut that I desire. So that's the basic idea. So let's see how we could get it done. So I'm going to go back here to my moon inlay. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to take that moon and round the edges. The reason for that is that whenever the laser is cutting around a corner, it's actually a round shape. The laser itself is a round shape. So it's going to leave mostly a rounded corner as it kind of turns around. So one cool trick is to add a modifier called rounded corners. Round corners. That's quite a lot. We want to make that a bit subtle. So something like 0.3 inches. So that kind of, smooths out that corner. And that's gonna allow me to have a closer cut. So then, actually, I'm gonna create one I call outside, or I'm gonna call it the moon cut. So I have my base moon right here, no treatment. I'm gonna create one that is based on that one. I'm gonna call it the moon cut. And so I'm just dragging that same moon. And to this one, I'm gonna add an expand, meaning I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger. And so there's this modifier called expand or offset. And so that's quite a lot. I'm gonna start with guessing a certain expansion, like something like 0.01. And so as you can see, the result is very subtle. I have to zoom in, but the original shape is this blue line, and the resulting shape expanded is this red one. So that's cool. And then for the circle one, instead of an expand, I'm gonna contract it. So I'm gonna select the same cut, which is the same, I'm gonna do it again just to it's clear, which is this moon component. And this one I'm going to contract. So I'm going to say contract. I'm going to say the same amount. And I'm going to make it black, because I want that to be cut first. So here we can see the result of the contract is the original shape is the blue line, and the resulting one is the black one. So then I'm going to send this to the laser cutter. But just to make life easier for myself, I'm going to add a little marking. So I'm going to use this single line text. I'm just going to place it here. I'm going to make it really small, like 9 points. And so I want these, I want these to be a score, so I can kind of match things. I'm just going to try and place it right here. That's where I want it. I want it to be blue, so it gives me another operation. And I want these to be the amount that I expanded. So this distance. So in order to do that, I'm just going to create a quick parameter. I can actually extract these as a parameter. Instead of distance, I'm going to call it the expand amount, so it's clear. And so I want to kind of plug this into this text. And so I need to click on the 3 dots here, the ... and edit expression, and enter the expand amount. So anyway, that's just a really quick way of marking the amount that I expanded it. So to make sure it's work, I can mark, and you can see how the moon expands and the number reflects that. So that's for the moon cut. And for the circle, I'm going to do something similar. So quickly again, single line text. I made that 9 points. I made it blue, so it's a different operation. And then I want this one also to reflect the same number. So meaning this distance number. So I'm going to extract it as a parameter, and I'm going to call this one the contract distance. And once again, I need to go to the text and then kind of plug in the contract distance. I click the ... edit expression, contract distance. There you go. Cool. So I think this is a little bit of almost a recap of the thing we did last time. I did a lot of these things really fast, but hopefully, if it's confusing, I can explain it more, but let's carry on with this. So what happened here is that now I have, this is actually not the one I want. This is gonna be my cut. For my cut, I'm gonna grab that circle that is marked with the 001. I'm gonna grab the moon cut, and I'm gonna cut these two. I did prepare this cut, so I'm gonna show you what's the result. This is the original one. I'm gonna place it here, and this is the one with the, so as you can see, I scored that marking, and I scored the marking on this one, and so I can match these two. You'll see why. So let's test it. So if I place it in there, so it's a little better. Like the wiggle is small, you know, there is less wiggle on that one than there is on this one. See how much there is there. See how much there is there. But not there yet. So let's put this one aside. And then let's see. So the next step is just to make it a little bigger. So since I have everything set up, I can do it relatively quick now because, you know, I don't have to repeat all these operations. I can simply go do something like this. I can grab my circle. And because that circle has already a way to change the distance, I can change it right here. So I can say, you know, how about a 2 or 0.02? And then I also need the moon cut. And how about we make this one 02 as well? And of course, I also prepared this cut. So let's see what that one looks like. So that is the next one. That's the next test. So let's check this out. So I can like put that one in there. And so it doesn't wiggle as much, but it's not totally what I want because, I mean, it's kind of cool. It stays in place. That's the goal. But I can actually like push it out relatively easy. I would like that to kind of stay better. So you get the process now. So I'm gonna show you the others. So for the next one, I of course did 03, and I did it in the same fashion. I grabbed it from here. I did 0.03. Then the cut also did 03. And of course, I mean, I'm showing you kind of like in steps, but you could easily, you know, grab all of the ones that you want. You could like, you know, do all of these and then select them all, and then put them on your, you know, laser cutter of choice. And so I did find out that 03 was very close. It was like close enough that almost good. But then I found out that the next one I wanted to try after 03, the jump wasn't as big. So what I did is I did 3, and somewhere in between 03 and 04 was 035. So I did that, and I did this one too, 035. And let me show you that one. So let's see. First, 03. Let's see what that one feels like. So I actually have to make some effort to push it in. If I go relatively straight. And actually, it's really good. It even like clicks a little bit, and it kind of stays in place. So this is the back. I didn't remove the masking tape on that one. Yet, I can still kind of push it out without too much effort. Which is where the next one came in. So that was my next test. And so these one, I feel, kind of gave me a really nice fit. So this is an interesting thing because like once I made these one and I tried to press it in, it's fairly hard. But an interesting trick with inlays is that, because the laser doesn't cut a perfectly straight cut, is actually a little bit angled. If you flip it around, so this was the front, I can tell because, this has the scoring mark. If I flip it around and I push it in, I get a really nice fit on this one. So let me get the focus right there. Okay, maybe a bit closer. So yeah, check this out. I have a fairly nice, it kind of pushes in. It's probably nice to glue. This is the back. So yeah, so that was the inlay in this particular case. So there are a few things we can do to make things better, unless you have any questions. So now that I figure out this dimension, hopefully that dimension might look familiar to some of you, because if we add these two, we get 7. And that dimension might be similar. I mean, or you might remember that from things like, let's look, like I said, at a box template. So we use that as the kerf value very often, 0.07. And so they're connected. Like the thing I was kind of explaining all along is that this expand and this contract on two shapes is roughly the size of the, what people call the kerf. Hopefully this was like another way of like getting at that explanation. So, and in this case, it's half of 0.07, because if we look at this demo again, if the laser is right in the middle of the line, the actual amount that we compensate for is about half of that circle, because half of that circle, the section over here, is the one that is affecting mostly our final result. So another way to understand how I arrived at these 0.03 is that, in the calculation, you could even like create a parameter called kerf, and then the amount that you compensate by on the inside and the outside, it would be half the kerf. It's just like extra math to think about. One thing that is fun that we can do now with this particular project is that with the moon, because the moon has this moon phase possibility, we could totally use it. We could do a quick thing here, because I can go back to the moon component. This is the original one. This is the one that is being sort of used to create the cut, and the one, the outside cut, and the one that is being used to create the inside cut. So if I select this one, and here's the moon phase parameter, I can click the ... edit. Oops, sorry, that's not what I meant. I can click the ... and extract it as a parameter. This makes it a local parameter, and so we want to make it a whole project parameter, meaning it affects everything in the project. So I'm gonna click here, and there is an option that says move parameter to project. So it jumped from here to here, and so what that means is now these will affect everything in the project. So if I go back to my cut, let's see how it affects everything. So yeah, cool. That's kind of like what I wanted. So this way I can have like an earring or something where I can actually select the moon phase. That was just like a sort of quick demonstration of how to do project parameters. And then if you want to fully turn it into a project, then we can, now that we found out that for my materials and for my laser cutter specifically, I'm using the 003, then I can simply hide that text from both of my cuts. I'm just gonna use, there's a little eye here that makes it visible or not. And then every time I want an earring, I can grab my outside cut and my moon cut, and I can select the moon face, and then I can have a really nice inlay, and of course separated. And naturally I can, turn it into a template just to connect it to what we had been doing before. So I'm going to hit the readme, and the component I want is this last one. I'm going to rename it, I don't know, final cut. The final, seriously. And so to place it here on the readme, I hit component and final cut. So there it is. It's a little nice inlay with the moon face. Cool. So that took half an hour. Hopefully that was interesting. If you have any questions, I have a couple of minutes to answer any questions you might have, or things you might want to change about these. Otherwise, otherwise, I suppose this could be like a cool moon coin. Thanks a lot. Somebody said, "Nice job, good explanation, excellent." I'm glad it landed. I suppose that I'm going to add it. The last little thing that I would probably add to these is like a little hole for the earring. So I was just kind of very specific about which component I added the hole into, and I know is this particular one, and so that should translate into the into where it lands. So cool. Thanks a lot for watching. I'm gonna there's gonna be a recording of these on Facebook, and I'm also uploading them to YouTube. You can find them by going to YouTube at Cuddle. And there is in the playlist, you'll find the Facebook live sessions. It's also there for ease of watching or sharing. Excellent. I'll see you in the next one. Okay, bye.